Hello everyone and welcome back to another Conquer FX webinar. Today we are discussing why are you afraid of losing. Now before we jump straight into this, once again I would really appreciate if you could just hit that like button. It really just takes 2 seconds out of your time, but it is a massive help to us and our channel, and basically will encourage us to provide more free content for you guys as well. If you have any interesting thoughts or any other questions, can you please leave a comment below and I'll make sure to get back to you or include it as a video title and answer your questions in a full breakdown video here on YouTube. And if you're interested in the strategy development, data collection phase, risk management, money management, and anything trading related, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well for a lot more trading content. So let's get straight into things here. I want to first start off with this quote. Winning is great, sure, but if you are really going to do something in life, the secret is learning how to lose. I think this is hugely important for trading. With this Instagram culture, all we're seeing is winning everywhere. And we know that this is not what's really happening behind closed doors. What's happening behind closed doors is an absolute massacre, a purge. People are blowing accounts left, right, and center. They're feeding their egos off the likes on their Instagram page, making them fill this hole that was created from them blowing accounts over time. But as long as everyone else thinks they're winning, hey, what harm is that? Well, this is the problem. This is the problem, that people do not understand that losing is a part of this game, and what's really important to survive in this game is that you have to become a very good loser. And becoming a good loser doesn't just mean being able to take a loss and walk away and come back and do the exact same plan again and have faith in that plan. That is only one part of being a good loser. The second part and third part about being a good loser is actually about being able to analyze what's in front of you and use the loss as information to improve, to learn something. Because every time you take a trade, you add an extra piece to your data collection in general, okay? You're this database that you should be collecting in your trading journal. You are getting more information about your basically trading plan, your trading strategy or system. And if you're not actually using this to your advantage, you are going to fall behind. You are never going to reach the heights in your trading career that you wish or desire without doing this. And in order to reach those heights, you need to become a good loser. Learning how to lose is extremely important. It's not just about cutting your losses short or whatever else. It's about looking at your losses not as something that measures your self-worth like the majority do, but instead looking at it as an obstacle, looking at it as data in itself, providing you the roadmap for the solutions that you may not have found yet, or information that you may not have had access to because you've never actually seen it until now when it was addressed in those losing periods. And that's what I want to shift. I want to shift the mindset that losing is okay once it is a calculated loss, once it is a loss that is part of your overall edge, once the odds are playing out by you executing your plan. That is a loss that is okay once you are taking something from it. There's no point of taking the loss without actually getting something from it. Imagine this, if you are actually taking a loss that is calculated and well managed, all you're doing, that loss is just an expense for the data that trade has provided you. So use that trade. Make sure that if you lost €200 for that data, make sure you get something out of it, screenshot it, understand what's going on, and move forward with that new information, making minor improvements every single day until those minor improvements have a compounded effect on your results in a positive manner. Now, before we get into this, we need to actually identify the reasons why you feel afraid of losing in the first place, okay? And once we're able to identify the problem, we can therefore identify the solutions. And this is a very common process in strategy development in general. Once we're actually able to see, for example, a problem within our system, once we're able to identify it and what that looks like, where it's coming from, then we can start looking at the solutions and everything else that we can put into our trading plan or strategy to be able to basically improve our results over time or cure that problem overall. Now, You're afraid of losing for the following reasons. Now, before we get into this, what I want to talk about here is that these reasons are very generic, okay? And it's important to understand that I am talking to a larger audience here. The information that we're giving out here is so everyone can relate to it, but making sure that we're still trying to dig deep into those emotional triggers that are causing this in the first place. So these are the 5 most common ones I believe are the most generic to everyone, and probably emotions or reasons or whatever else that majority of people have experienced at some time in their trading journey. Now, the first one is you're risking too much. Second is you're expecting a certain outcome. You are trying to control a market that cannot be controlled by you. You don't actually have a plan in the first place, and I'm talking about a real plan. And you don't understand the numbers. Now that we actually are able to identify the problems at hand, we can start jumping into the solutions, and we're going to break down each one of these solutions so you get a better understanding of what you can actually do to improve on these areas in your trading. The first one is you're risking too much. Now, this is very, very important because I believe when we talk about flow states in trading, a lot of it actually has got to do with your risk appetite. And this comes back to the same thing about generic information, okay? If you wanted, and this goes for business or anyone that's talking on TikTok, bullshit or whatever, giving advice in general, no matter what TED Talk you go to, no matter what sort of inspirational talk or business conference you go to, they're talking with generic information. The reason for this is it's a lot easier to actually give generic information, or it's a lot easier to look smarter and like you know what you're talking about when you give generic information to a large audience, because you're more likely, if the content you're sharing is generic, the mass majority are more likely to relate to it. Instead of giving an advanced model that may work a little bit better, but only to a very small majority that understand it. And that's what it's like when it comes to this topic here. You've been told to risk 1% over and over and over again. Just risk 1%. It's that easy. But why does no one ever talk about varying your risk, or varying your risk depending on what your equity curve is looking like, or how you started that month, or how high of a probability your trade outcome actually has? Maybe it's just because people don't actually understand their data in the first place and how that may look, how that may actually play out and what the data may look like for that. But I believe genuinely majority of people are saying that just risk 1%. Yes, it does work, but it's generic information. It will work for the majority, but it won't work for everyone. And that's what this graph is here for. I want you to actually understand your risk appetite, because for you personally, 1% may be too little, but it might also be too much, and you've been told to risk 1%. But 1% is still that thing where you are struggling to execute. Now, we often see traders saying, oh, I risk 2%, 1%, even 0.5%. This will depend on the trader and their overall trading experience as well. If you imagine this, trader 1 has experience of 10 years and trader 2 has experience of 1 year. If trader 2 actually tries to trade the same amount of risk as trader 1, realistically they're not going to be able to cope emotionally with those drawdown levels, and probably not actually understand how those drawdown levels should be managed in the first place. And that's what I'm trying to get at here. We need to find your sweet spot. And if we look at the graph here, this is your sweet spot right here. Okay, this is too much and this is too little. And I want to explain the characteristics of this so you actually understand where you're sitting right now. The characteristics of a trader who risks too much is someone who hesitates to actually take the trade in the first place. When they're looking at the trade and they're about to enter, they've done their analysis, they actually can't pull the trigger. They're hesitating, they're thinking too much about what if this happens, what if that happens, or how much they're going to lose. This is stopping them from actually being in a flow state in the first place. The trader that's risking too little doesn't actually give a fuck what he's risking. He's actually just pressing the trigger over and over again because it's so little that he's risking that he doesn't actually really care about the outcome. It's more of a game for him, or him or her, okay? And if he's winning, he'll probably take another trade because, oh, well, I'm only risking this amount. You're in that phase where you don't actually care about the outcome. The trader who's just right, who's in this sweet spot, is one who cares about their rules, okay? Cares about the trade enough, or cares about the risk enough that they care about their rules, but they still are able to accept the risk that they're trading, or that they chosen to trade. Now, this is going to be completely different for everyone else, and this is the problem with social media. We're giving generic information without understanding that there is not only one way to trade, and when we try to actually make a one-size-fits-all in trading, usually it ends up becoming very frustrating for the parties that do not fit that size. And this is the exact same when it comes to risk tolerance in general. Risk tolerance is very, very personal. It is very personal to the individual's life experience, beliefs about the market, and overall trading experience. If you start off with 0.2%, you could actually trade better than the trader who at the start is trying to trade 3% per trade. You're in a state that allows you to become a lot more focused when taking that trade and execute with confidence, because you are in a state of mind that you are able to accept the risk that you've put on the table, allowing you now, instead of focusing on how much you risked, you're bringing your focus to trading well. And that's where we want you. Traders who are in this just right area, or in this frequency level, are able to execute with confidence. A majority of the time, you're not executing with confidence for two reasons. Either you're risking too much, or you don't understand your numbers. And that's what we're going to talk about later. But to tackle this problem, what you need to do is you need to go through a kind of trial and error method. You need to, if you have a 10,000 euro account right now, play around with the risk over the next few trades. Okay, understand, put a max threshold of say 2% on it, and the lower threshold can go all the way down to 0.1%. Okay, but find out where you can bring that sweet spot that you can just execute with confidence, that you actually don't care about the loss. I guarantee you, your trading is going to change hugely. You're no longer going to care about these extreme drawdown levels. But you can also put in metrics then, that if you actually understand your trading psychology on a really, really deeper level, you can start varying your trading. Or if you actually understand your numbers on a real deeper level as well, I should say, you can start adding in variance of risk depending on what opportunities you're trading, or depending on what your mental focus is, or depending on what your equity curve is actually looking like for that month. For me, I will tend to be more aggressive in the month if I'm starting off well. But let's say I start the month off on a loss. Straight away, I'll lower my risk until I become back over that threshold. And this is how I manage my drawdown levels on a month-to-month basis. This is how I defend my line on the equity curve and make sure that the equity curve is constantly heading up. That when I do experience drawdown levels, I'm attacking them aggressively with my defense. And when I'm in the right mindset to be trading aggressively, I'm upping my gear on how aggressive I can be, but still keeping in mind that my defense needs to be as aggressive as my approach when it comes to executing that trade in the first place. The next problem is you're expecting a certain outcome. Now, this is so common amongst the majority of traders that they believe just because they've had 3 losses in a row that the next one has to be a winner, or just the fact that they've had 3 wins in a row that they have this almost euphoria that they can actually take over the world and they can become the best trader alive, and all their trades from now on are going to be winning trades. This is a huge, huge problem. And I want you to look into my magic hat here at the moment. I want you to imagine that you couldn't see what's at the bottom of this magic hat. And all it said was that every time you pull into this magic hat, over 100 times, you have a 60% chance of picking out a toy that is a winner. Okay? Would you hesitate to pull out this, pull anything out of this hat? Okay? You'd be pulling out of this hat, or sorry, I should say that, and your loss, okay, every time you take a loss, I'm going to take 1 toy away from you, or 1 winner away from you. But every time you pull a winner, it's going to be worth twice the amount of a loss, okay? You're not going to actually care about pulling the trigger because you understand the odds. You've accepted the risk and you understand the odds. But most importantly, what's happened here is the mental shift that you don't know when you're going to pull a win or a loss out next. All you know is that you have a 60% win rate here, and that your wins are going to be twice the amount you lose. That is a fair game. And you are going to play that game with a lot of confidence. And this is why, we'll come into this later, understanding your numbers is so important. Because if you understand you have a 60% win rate, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore that you are going to have, the next 2 trades are going to be a loss or whatever it may be. All you're doing is consistently executing that plan. And if you have a well-tested strategy that has been proven over 5, 10 years or whatever it may be, and you can prove to yourself that this system can make money, your mental focus stops going to, oh shit, how much money can I make, to how can I trade this to the best of my ability. And that's where we want you at. We want you in a growth mindset. We don't want you in this mindset where you're worrying and can't access that flow state to actually see what your potential looks like. So what I'm saying here is, stop trying to expect a certain outcome and predict if the next trade is going to be a win or loss. Stop caring if the next trade is going to be a win or loss. Focus on trading well and start focusing on understanding your edge in the market. Focus on, okay, it doesn't matter if this is a win or loss, because this is a probabilities game. And the distribution of when it's going to be a win or loss is going to be completely random. And you're going to hear this from Mark Douglas. He says this all the time, and it's a brilliant way of looking at that. The distribution of wins and losses are completely random. Each trade is unique. So start looking at it that way. Each trade is its own separate identity. It's the way I like to describe it is, in a complete picture, it's one pixel in a complete picture. So this trade is just this. In a complete picture, okay? It's one pixel in a complete picture, and that is what your trade is. That's the significance of your trade right now. So if you have a bad day, if you had a really bad day in your trading and you just lost a big control, tomorrow's a new day. The next trade you take is a new trade. It's unique on its own and should be traded that way, but also keeping in mind to manage risk. But the whole point here, what I'm trying to say is, you're expecting a certain outcome. Stop expecting a certain outcome and start understanding the numbers. The next is, you are trying to control the market. A lot of you are doing your analysis over the weekend, getting very excited for the week ahead. You're drawing all this fancy art on your chart, putting so much faith in the line that when you enter the chart and you start seeing this bearish candle go against you, the anxiety kicks in. This fear of losing kicks in again. And why is it kicking in? Because you don't understand why the market is not actually respecting your line. Imagine if you started focusing on the probabilities again and stopped focusing on, okay, this line is going to hold this market. We have an engulfing candle here. This market has to reject this line right now. The market doesn't have to do anything. The market is going to do what it wants to do. So make sure you keep that in mind. That it doesn't matter what level you draw. It doesn't matter what trend line or order block or whatever nonsense you have in your chart. All that is to navigate your way around this mess. That's all technical analysis is. It's a navigator, it's a map, it's a roadmap. That's all it is there. It's to help us to digest that information in front of us and pick pieces away from it that we can possibly place the odds on. Okay? It's not there to tell us that this is where the orders are at and it's blah, 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 and all this other bullshit you see. And this is the problem. This is you. This is SMC culture. Right here, this is SMC culture, because you're trying to catch this pip, okay? When the professional traders that are actually trading a considerable amount of capital don't give a fuck about actually predicting the price point. They care about making money, keeping their investors happy, being able to pay their bills, give their family the life they want. They don't care about feeding their ego, and it's the exact same. This is why SMC culture is so dangerous. It's on Instagram that they care about the like. All they care about is this little love heart on the side of their screen. But the reality is they're all blowing their accounts behind the scenes. Or to predict this price point, they took about 10 losses on the way up and then finally got that one that made them back all of this money. But that right there in itself, you might say that's a profitable strategy. But 90% of traders won't actually be able to trade that. Some of the best traders won't be able to trade that in the world. That takes a serious amount of emotional strength. So please understand this. The higher or you go up, tens of risk reward, the majority, you're going to take more losses, okay? You're going to take more losses, and majority of traders do not have the emotional strength for that. So stop trying to control the market, focus on trading well, focus on putting less faith in that line of yours on the chart, and instead executing a process that is based off probabilities that you have collected in your data collection. And that's what we're talking about next. You don't have a plan or understand the numbers. Let me tell you this, hope is not a plan. You cannot go up against the trader or perform against the trader who, first of all, has 10 years experience, okay, and you only have one. But you most certainly can't go up against the trader who has collected an insanely large database over the years. That database can be pen and paper, okay, or it can be Excel sheets, or it can be any of these journaling softwares, whatever it may be, whatever suits you. But you will never be able to compete with that trader's performance who has a data collection process or a database that is so big that helps them understand the odds they're playing with, no matter what the variant is. And this, having the data allows you to use different filtering processes to be able to adjust your risk, so you can understand when you can turn that gear up. But also understanding data in general and the odds that you're playing with allows you to execute with confidence. You're no longer going to feel this fear of anxiety from trading. You're no longer going to feel the anxiety of pulling the trigger. Because once you have this checklist, and this is what we do in my mentorship program, we talk about the importance of checklists and how we can learn about this from the military. It keeps us in order. That even on our toughest of days, if we have a checklist in front of us and we have to tick that off, we're more likely to execute a plan that has an edge over one that doesn't. And checklists are important because if we develop a database, okay, that gives us a plan, okay, and this is our trading plan, okay, and to make this plan, we've created a large database that has now given us the numbers that we can clearly see visually, and we've visually proven to ourselves that this strategy has edge. Now all we need to do is focus on trading well, the process. We have now gone from a data collection to being focused on being very process driven. And that's what I'm talking about here. Imagine the trader here who can tick this checklist off, okay, their plan is complete, now they can pull the trigger. They are going to be able to execute that trade on a day-to-day basis with more confidence than the trader who has no idea what their actual data is, or understand really any in-depth knowledge about their strategy. And it comes the same down if we talk about losing again. It's the same when it comes to drawdown levels. Or let's just say your equity curve looked like this. You went through a few months of amazing trades. Something happens, the market just changed, or you personally have gone through tough life experiences. And all of a sudden, you're now seeing your equity curve do this on a consistent basis. Now, the difference is, a trader who understands their drawdown levels over 5 to 10 years can say, well, my max drawdown was 10% in my backtesting, so I'm going to put a buffer of 12%. So if I ever reach below 12%, I'm going to have to stop trading and seriously reevaluate what's going on here, and actually look at myself and look at my trading and the markets and what has changed. Okay, but until then, I can continue to execute my plan because technically nothing is wrong. My strategy has shown over 5 to 10 years that this is what sort of drawdown levels I can experience. The trader who knows that data is going to be able to continue to execute his plan his or her plan with confidence, rather than the trader who's actually sitting there who has no idea how far on average these drawdown levels can go or how long they can last for. That trader who has no idea about those numbers is not going to survive the long-term game. They'll actually end up giving up on that strategy, and then they'll hop from strategy to strategy until they find a system that they think will just continuously turn over numbers over and over again. But the fact of the matter is, no matter how good the strategy is, you have information in front of you that can give you an edge. You have information that you can use to not necessarily control, but in this world of uncertainty in the financial markets, you can grab back a bit of that certainty with those data numbers. And that's what's so important to understand. So to summarize all this information, find your sweet spot when it comes to your risk appetite through a process of trial and error. Understand your strategy's probability. Understand it's a probability game in general, and that you can't control the outcome. Stop trying to control and start executing, and focus on the data collection process, building a database that allows you to understand your system in general and actually be able to execute with confidence.